Hello and welcome to my channel. In today's episode, we talked to Martha Waslen, dear friend of mine, that started a luxury app, a luxury company that is really hitting a niche that no one else has really targeted in the way that she is. It's really a network of luxury brands, experiences, so like at a spa or a restaurant, and it's all available through this seamless app that's leveraging the latest technologies. So, Web3, crypto, NFTs, AI, all of which are topics that are really close to my heart. I love these topics. I'm a bit of a nerd, I know. But it's really remarkable because not only is she targeting a niche that no one else has really put their finger on and doing it in such a seamless way as she is, but she also started this company at the peak of COVID. So at a time when the world is in despair and in lockdown, she finds herself just connecting dots and developing this incredible concept. So it's remarkable because all of these things were done while she's at home with two kids, both of them under 2 years old at the time. So for all the women that feel limited or overwhelmed as a mother, as a wife, or the global situation, which we can all definitely relate. She's a real testament of how you can accomplish your dreams, prioritize your dreams, which is extremely important for women to do, and do it while still being a mom and still being a wife. It's just a really inspiring story. So, without further ado, I bring you Miss Martha Waslen with DayAway. Thank you so much for joining the show today, Martha.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, on today's episode, we have Martha Waslen joining us today from DayAway, which we're very excited to hear and learn more about. Some of the things that I admire most of Martha when we met in Phuket, actually during an event, a crypto real estate event called Majestic Phuket, which was incredible. We met incredible people there. Was just her overall presence, very strong, which is one of the focuses of this show, is really showcasing and empowering powerful women that I believe deserve that spotlight. But just her overall presence, just extremely elegant, very feminine, but strong. And I think nowadays, something that's really close to my heart and that I think is important to talk about. And I really truthfully wish we could rework the concept of feminism or what is a strong woman. I think many a times people associate women and men the concept of, being, excuse my language, like being butch or being, like just extremely like, against men or like just really just like the epitome of feminism. And they think that portrays or that really like defines a strong woman. And I don't think it's the case. And so I would just love to just get to know you a little bit more. Maybe you could start by just sharing your background, what makes you uniquely you, influences in your life that impacted you.
Sure. So, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Really happy to have this chat with you today. And yeah, a little background on me. I'm currently living in Singapore, but I'm American. I'm originally from New York. I was born there. I think we talked in one of our early conversations. I'm from quite a big family, probably exhibit some typical signs of middle child syndrome, but I'm the fourth of six kids, and our family is growing by the second, 15 nieces and nephews and brothers-in-laws and sisters-in-laws and everything. So come from a big, wonderful family. I miss them so much living here in Southeast Asia. Travel and exploring has always kind of been core to who I am. So living very far away from home. But I love it here in Southeast Asia, traveling a lot with my job, with my family. So that's certainly a huge influence in my life and what I love to do and the reason I started this company. And yeah, so I think drawing a lot of inspiration from that and from the people that I'm meeting in all of these wonderful places.
Thank you. Could you share with us about your company, DayAway?
Sure. I launched DayAway in May 2021 here in Singapore. We're headquartered here. Like many startups, over the last 2 years, we've gone through a number of different iterations, which I could explain in more detail if it's of interest. But essentially, we started DayAway as a software that would allow hotels, primarily hotels at the time, to market their facilities and amenities. And this was in the wake of COVID. Borders were closed, rooms were empty, and the hotels need to find a new way to engage with the domestic market. So in Singapore, I think the hotels are quite lucky. People love to do staycations. This is something that's been very normal here long before COVID. Through the wake of the pandemic, that wasn't enough. People just coming to book, a room for one night on the weekend. So hotels really needed to find ways to diversify revenue. But really, starting the company, before I even knew that this was a need with hotels, came from a very personal, kind of desire to spend more time at the hotel. Singapore is a lovely place. It's very small. I think a number of us who live here kind of depend on that international travel. And when we couldn't do it, and there were restrictions around dining and being in and out of stores and, the beautiful malls and boutiques, people were looking for things to do. And from my home, from my apartment, I can see, even still now, the rooftops of 7 hotel pools. So I could see all of these hotels, all the lights off in the rooms. I could see the pools were empty. I could see the spas were empty. The newly renovated gyms, all empty. And I was like, all I want to do is get from where I am in my house into this space that I know is empty. Like, my husband was going through a capital raise at the time. We had 2 kids under the age of 2. It was like struggle city. And I was like, you are sitting on an abundance of inventory. I am bringing an abundance of demand. Let me in. So I started calling the hotels, and they're like, this is a great idea. We would love to do this. Let us get back to you. We don't know if there's a package, what it costs, when is it available? And I was like, right, there's a big opportunity here to build a platform for hotels and other kind of luxury experience providers, yacht charters, helicopter companies, restaurants, to market experiences to this qualified audience of people who are looking for something really engaging to do. But until we built the software and, of course, the marketplace that now exists, there was no centralized destination for booking these kinds of experiences. So now, we've evolved over time, and now we've become a members only model. So when you join our platform, you get access to all of these curated experiences that are exclusive to our platform, evergreen privileges at partners' properties. So that might be discounts on dining, spa, gifts with purchase from the hotel, invitations to hotel openings, things like that. Community here in Southeast Asia have found this a very valuable membership. And now we work closely with credit card companies, banks, et cetera, to be an incentive for their clients, card members. So that's been the evolution over the last 2 years.
Wow, that's incredible. Maybe you can share where, I know you alluded to now you're partnering with different credit cards, expanding in that way to their user bases, their customer bases. But can you share what else is on the horizon or what's exciting right now and where you're evolving to?
Absolutely. So I think we are an interesting company. And I think being in such a traditional industry, a lot of things that we launch are met with questions from, our travel and hospitality partners. But I have to say, I've been very encouraged by how receptive they are to the new tech that we're using. This isn't really a tech forward industry. So we've done a number of things over the last few months, actually, that have been, we find, very exciting. We launched an NFT backed loyalty program. So it's all built on chain. What's interesting about incorporating this technology is we're not marketing ourselves as a Web3 company. We're simply a new era of startups that are using the best technology at their disposal. My husband, Dave, works very deeply in the Web3 space. And as we were starting to evolve the DayAway platform, we knew we would, of course, be launching a loyalty program. What was the most efficient way to do that? How could we scale it in the most productive way possible using the best technology? And building it on blockchain, backing all of our memberships with an NFT that would allow us to airdrop to them new benefits, utilities, entry passes, etc., was an obvious choice for us. I didn't even think twice about it. Like, of course, we're going to build this on blockchain. Some other things might change. Like, at the time, we were marketing it very much as an NFT. The term NFT has kind of faded to the background. Our members don't necessarily need to know what powers this loyalty program. All they know is this is far more frictionless, more seamless than any loyalty program they've been a part of in the past. So when they log into our marketplace, or they buy this highest tier of membership, we would mint an NFT on their behalf. We hold it in a custodial wallet. We link it to the back of their membership account. And as we launch new partnerships with other hospitality and travel brands, we no longer need to email them a discount code or a private link. They can access all of those benefits by just logging into that partner's website, because we've integrated our token gate into this hotel's website or this luxury travel partner's website. So you sign in using your email address and password affiliated with your DayAway account that detects that you still have this NFT in your wallet, and your benefits unlocked. So we've seen, even from a majority Web 2 audience, incredible feedback reception on how easy it is to redeem these benefits. So we launched that initiative in January. That was our NFT drop on OpenSea. We actually received quite a lot of press coverage. OpenSea was incredibly supportive, hosting Twitter Spaces. They featured us on the homepage of the site. So that was really exciting. A development we've launched since then is our AI generated business development strategy.
Wow.
So in working with these credit card companies and the banks that want to onboard hopefully hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people into our marketplace, we need the inventory to service that many people. You know, going partner to partner, hotel to hotel, yacht company, restaurant, private members club, whatever it might be, getting them to say yes, and then creating a profile for them on the DayAway marketplace. We are using AI, Auto GPT, to create hundreds, now thousands, of these supplier pages. So we can put in a list of, top 1,000 hotels in the world. It will auto create marketing descriptions, recommended experiences based on facilities that are at that hotel or that restaurant, pricing recommendations, etc. AI creates that whole page. It automatically emails the hotel to see the page that we've created for them, and then they can accept it to go live on the marketplace or decline. So this will scale our business development in a massive way. But again, not marketing ourselves as an AI company, using the best tech that is available in the market to keep our burn super low. And it's been extraordinarily effective. So we're really excited about that.
No, I love it. Thank you. And I love how simplistically or easily you explained a lot of this like Web3 terminology, which for those that are listening, I know it's like a whole new world. When we say, Web3, we're just meaning it's basically the evolution of the internet, right? It just means blockchain, crypto, all those terms that you've heard, token, NFT. It's this whole new evolution of technology, really. It's an evolution of the web, but of just technology. So I loved that. Thank you for explaining it the way you did. Yeah, and then what we mean by Web2 is just simply everyone that is unaware or has not used any Web3 technology, as we just explained. So thank you for that. Perhaps for our viewers or our listeners as well, you could just mention which are some of the hotels that are affiliated with you.
Sure. So we work with some of the most prestigious properties in Southeast Asia at the moment, and Australia and UAE as well. Raffles Hotel Singapore was our first partner, arguably the most iconic property here in Singapore. And we really, aimed high. We wanted to have our first few partners really set the bar for the brand and the type of platform that we were building. And they've been an incredible partner, very innovative, willing to experiment with DayAway. So we've been really grateful for their partnership. We also work with other iconic brands like Peninsula, Waldorf Astoria, Ritz-Carlton. Just trying to think of a few other properties we're working with. The Kempinski Hotel Group. Yeah, we've had a really wonderful, 2 years working with some of the most prestigious brands in hospitality. And now we are expanding that, as I mentioned earlier, working with restaurant groups, private members clubs. We just onboarded 67 Pall Mall, very exclusive wine club that was started in London, now has a property here in Singapore. It's gorgeous, stunning. And now they are offering experiences, very limited access to our DayAway members, but they don't want to affect the legitimacy of their own membership program. But being able to access those wine tastings, those sommelier master classes is a really amazing benefit for our DayAway community. So they're loving that. And we are going to continue with that, high-end co-working spaces, other private members clubs. So really creating this great network of high quality, iconic brands that are offering benefits to our membership.
Beautiful. Well, I applaud all your success. I think one of the things that I think both for men and women alike that is so well, it's remarkable is that you just found yourself during COVID, with this personal need, as you said, just wanting to get out of the, your house or your condo, your apartment, and just picked up the phone. I think so many of us can relate in our own way. You have an idea or you have a vision, you have it in your mind and your heart, and it's just that like pushing through, right? Like taking that first step to do it. That's something that is amazing. So congratulations on that. And you mentioned, well, in our conversations, outside of this podcast, you've mentioned, what a crucial partner, literally, your partner, Dave, has been in your life. So perhaps you could share, like, just what were the conversations you guys had, or what can you think back and, yeah, and be thankful for, because that is the word. It's an incredible privilege and honor to have a partner, and I can relate in my own way, having a partner that supports you. But yeah, could you just share a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, ever since Dave and I met, we love to throw ideas around. I don't know. We have crazy plans. We met when we were both living in Southeast Asia. I was living in Singapore at the time. This is around 2013. And he was living in Hong Kong. And we met one night out in Hong Kong against all odds, randomly. I was only there for one night. He happened to be out entertaining a friend who was also only in town for one night. They were just out grabbing a drink. We had met under these kind of hilarious circumstances. And I think ever since then, or after we met, we were meeting up. Like, he would come visit in Singapore. We met up in Bali. We met up in Thailand. And so I feel like even the very early stages of our relationship was spent in this like bubble of like anything is possible. Like, we can do anything. We can meet up here or there, everywhere, like whatever. That's kind of stayed with us our whole relationship. Like, we're both big dreamers, I would say. We're both entrepreneurs. So I think anytime that either one of us has this like big crazy idea, the other tends to be very supportive. Like, yeah, let's think this through. Like, this could happen, and let's do this. And what would be the business model? Let's put together a deck. Like, maybe that makes this a bit weird, but like, we think it's really fun. And sometimes we start thinking about things like they're crazy, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, this isn't crazy. Like, we could absolutely do this. And so even after that time dating in Southeast Asia, at one point, I got a job back in New York. Dave was finishing his MBA, went back to spend some time in London. And then he was like, he was interviewing for jobs as well. And he was like, I could be in New York. And he got a job in New York. And then when we got engaged, we moved back to Western Canada, where he's originally from. He had started an investment fund there. And then he got, very involved in Web3. And the conversation came up, maybe we would move to a market it's a little bit more receptive to this technology. And, we started then, I think, Jess, you and I kind of joked about this. We started kind of one night over a few glasses of wine thinking about, okay, like, let's rate these cities. Where would we want to go just based on this criteria? And it was meant to be a fun activity. 2 months later, we moved back to Singapore. We just made the decision and here we came. When I started thinking about DayAway, in so many ways, Dave was involved in that from day one. I mean, really, the reason I needed to get out of the house was because of his capital raising efforts at the time. And I was like, I got to go. And he's like, yeah, let's like call the hotels. I'm sure there's, some kind of package you could book, be able to get out of the house for a couple of hours, while the kids are out doing something. And so even the genesis of the idea, he was quite involved. And then, of course, when I started to really formulate it and like, this could be a real company, this maybe is how the tech could work, this is how I would model it, he was just very supportive every step of the way. And the days where I didn't really want to pick up the phone, or I had spoken to 5 people who each introduced me to 5 more. Then I've got like a call list of 100 people. I'm like, ugh. Wow. There would be days where I'm like, maybe I just won't pick up the phone. And he'd be like, you know what, do it. Like, we've got nothing but time. We're not traveling. Everything is closed. So I think that support kind of every step of the way was critical, And now that we're making bigger decisions and the business is really growing and evolving, Dave is my number one sounding board. So, and I think vice versa with his businesses as well. And luckily we enjoy each other's work. And if that wasn't the case, I don't know. And with the parenting 2 toddlers, like, without that support from him, I just don't know how this would be possible, because even with all the support, it's still a challenge,
Yeah. No, I can so relate in my own way as well. But that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And if you guys ever see them together, they're just like beautiful couple. You can just feel that, like, you're super aligned and there's this synergy, which I think is goals. Tell us a little bit about your babies. I'm going to call them babies, even though they're older.
Oh,
but
I know. they're not
do you manage
babies anymore. They keep reminding me that they're no longer babies, but oh, we really like them. Our daughter, our daughter Gigi, she's Virginia Grace, but we call her Gigi. She is almost 5. She turns 5 in June. Very excited about that. She tells anyone who will listen that she's turning 5. And that she's now a big girl. And then our son George is 3.5. So they're 18 months apart to the day. And a funny little thing, Dave is born, his birth date is the 20th. Our daughter is the 20th. Our son is the 20th, all in different months, but it keeps it easy for me. But yeah, and they're very sweet. And, I think I worried a lot, and just we spoke about this, it gets to the point when it was kind of just whiteboarding DayAway. I didn't know that it would grow into this. I just had an idea. I was obsessed with seeing if it would work. And, I was hopeful that it would turn into something, but, at the time I just curious, right? And I just wanted to, anyone that was willing to have a conversation with me, great. And like I mentioned earlier, I had nothing but time. Everything was closed, everything was dead, I wasn't traveling. So I was excited to start it. And then the commitment, the stress really started to build. Of course, you bring in capital, you have employees, you build something, you have partnerships, contracts signed with hotels, you have customers. That commitment just grows and grows. Meanwhile, you have, when I started DayAway, I had 2 kids under 2. They're getting older. And Singapore's been an amazing place to make this possible because we have, that support in our home. We have help, which is life-saving at this point. But it becomes hard because there are days where you just feel like you're not doing anything right. You're not doing enough with work. You're not out there enough. You're not traveling enough because you feel guilty leaving the kids or the family for too long. And then you feel like you're not doing the parenting thing enough. So you're just kind of failing on both sides. Sometimes you feel like that. And I think I heard that from a mentor when I was at Ralph Lauren, my first job. We got to meet with a very senior level female executive, and a number of us women just starting our careers asked, how do you manage this with the family? And she had several kids, and she's like, sometimes you just feel like you're failing at both, and you just have to push through those days and, hope that you're setting a great example for your kids and a great example for other working parents, working moms. So I think, I try to keep that in mind, but there are these little reminders that maybe I am setting a good example. Like my daughter, every now and then she'll say she has to go into her room and do her work. She has work. She needs some alone time. She thinks about ideas and almost like little businesses she wants to start. At one point she had this little, I think it was last year, this little babysitting business with all of her dolls. And she was watching her dolls. And she would have us come and pick up the dolls as if she was running this little daycare. So I don't know, maybe it's rubbing off in a positive way. And some of those little moments that I've missed with them over the last few years are for some greater purpose. But I guess we'll see.
That's adorable. Do you feel, what role did your mom have? I know we didn't really talk about this. I think I shared some about my mom. My mom was out there getting, and that was, she definitely left an imprint, on my mind. But what role did your mom have, or what do you feel like she taught you or showed you?
Oh man, I think so much of this, now I would just say she was superwoman. She had 6 kids in 11 and a half years. And I think there were years where I remember we had babysitters, but no nanny, it literally boggles the mind. And she's so modest, constantly I'm calling her now as mother, being like, how is this even possible? How did you do this? And she was, she's very modest. She's it was a different time. And there's so many more expectations and pressures on mothers today. And, I think it's really generous of her to say that, because I think 6 kids at any time in life is a lot. But, my dad worked in politics as I was growing up. And then, very much in the corporate world as well. But he was working, every day, as so many fathers were during that time. There wasn't working from home, there wasn't hybrid. So, my mom was at home with the kids. And I think back on it, constantly driving somebody somewhere, tournament somewhere, hockey games, lacrosse games, school plays, ballet, the demands on her must have been enormous. So I think there's so much of that maybe you take for granted when you're younger, even into your 20s. and now married with kids myself, I really respect it and am in awe of it. So yeah, she's a pillar of my life and probably the only person I speak to, like, besides Dave and my kids, every day,
Wow.
every other day. Yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's
very
powerful.
lucky.
Yeah, yeah, that's really powerful. What would you tell mothers, women aspiring to to start a business, or maybe they have kids at home and they just feel like, I don't know how I'll multiply myself, like you were saying, like how would you encourage them, and what would you say?
Well, I think I made a joke to you the last time we talked about this, being like, don't do it.
Don't do it. That's the advice.
I'm kidding. But I
Oh,
would say, for me, and I can only share my experience, but for me,
man.
I mean, the sacrifices are real, like you can't be everywhere at once. And I would just say if it's something that you love and you're passionate about it, it will pay off. I mean, even if even if you are wanting to start a business and it's scary and this time that you would sacrifice with your kids and it might not succeed and all of these unknowns, something that you love and you're passionate about and you're curious about it, like, do it. I mean, or take the small steps. Like, there was a book Dave recommended to me years ago that we reference all the time called The Slight Edge. And really, that philosophy has kind of changed my life. I mean, I don't really feel like there's any one thing that really changes your life, but I mean, I think about it all the time. And it's just like when I wanted to explore starting DayAway, I didn't know how to start a company. I didn't know how to open a corporate bank account in Singapore. I certainly didn't know how to build software. It was just one step at a time. And it was, can I Google like how to set up a corporate entity in Singapore? Certainly I can do that. Can I print out some paperwork today? Fill it out tomorrow? Sure. Of course I can do these very small, teeny tiny steps. And then you look back 6 weeks later, it's like, oh my gosh, I just got all my paperwork and my company is now set up. And then you do the same thing with the bank account. And then you do the same thing with, I've got questions. Who do I know? Who can I reach out to on LinkedIn that's worked in this industry that might be able to introduce me to somebody? So I just think, yeah, starting a company or starting your own project overnight, of course it's scary, but it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So I think for anyone that's considering something like this and there's an idea that you have that you think could really be something, or you're passionate about it, or there's just something you're interested in and you have no idea what it would become, just take that first step. And
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't work out, but you just, like, you're not creating the company overnight and raising $10 million the next day and all of this stress is going to build. It's just step by step.
Yeah, that's so right. That's so right. And I would even add to what you shared earlier, which was your whiteboarding exercise.
Mm.
There's so much information on just visualization and how you, yeah, basically pre-design what you're going to do. And I know in my life, and thank you for sharing, from your angle. And I think that's so right. Is you just get started. And there are some shortcuts, which you'd probably agree, and you're laughing about it now, but it's so true. Like, you almost want to be careful what you write down, or
Mm.
what because it's just so powerful. Like, scripting is so powerful. And then you also mentioned, just go Google it. Just like, if
Yeah.
you don't know what to do, go Google it. And thankfully, there's now Chat GPT. So for those that don't know what it is, it's been quite the sensation. But I think it's kind of like this, like, tech bubble, right? That's like really like on like up to date on what's going on. But ChatGPT is just brilliant. Like, literally, just as it sounds, it's open AI. You go and you can ask it anything, and it'll just literally give you every single step. So that's brilliant. How would you say, like, what are the conversations in your head as you encounter a challenge, whether it be like personal life, children life, work life balance, or in your team? You said and I know you shared with me, in our prior conversation, that you've pretty much gone through a shift with your team, like having to rehire. And now you said you have like these all-star superstars. But that's hard. In my experience, I
Mm.
can definitely relate. Currently, recently, like, I'm still in crypto. That's the last thing I was really doing full time now outside. Like now, before the podcast, that I'm not doing. And I've had to build teams myself, and having to let someone go. That's hard. That's extremely hard. So, like, how do you go about your decision making process and handling challenging relationship dynamics?
Mm. Yeah, I think, obviously every situation is different. But one thing that just came to mind when you were saying that across all areas of the business, starting the business, the idea to put this idea out there, hire people, having to fire people. I think one thing that I've kind of learned about myself, or maybe I don't know if it's about myself or want to be core to how I manage things, how I make decisions, is just never making decisions out of fear or because it's hard. Like there might be something I decide not to do. It won't be because I'm fearful of doing it or because it's hard or difficult. It will be for some other reason. But I think that has been a guidepost for me. Like, am I making an excuse not to do this just because it's hard and it's difficult and there will be challenges and I don't have the answers, and so I'm backing away from it, or I'm procrastinating, or I'm finding ways to kind of justify not doing it, and really digging very deep and being like, is this out of fear, or like being honest with myself, I think is something that I've learned to recognize, or I'm trying to incorporate a bit more in my decision making. And particularly on the scaling up the team, having to scale down the team. I mean, really, nobody prepares you for that except experience. Unfortunately, it's still one of those things where practice makes perfect, like public speaking, doing these podcasts. I mean, I used to be terrified of speaking in public, and then you do some speaking engagements, speak on some panels, do this, you force yourself, and you become better over time. Unfortunately, it's the same thing with those really difficult conversations with employees where even it's just giving feedback, whether it's unfortunately having to let somebody go. And there's another book, done a lot of reading on this journey because, there was a lot I was learning. I never run a company, never really hired people, certainly never fired people before. So there was another book that was recommended to me called Crucial Conversations. And this was about, I think the basic premise is, for a business to succeed or for you to be successful, you need to have those hard conversations immediately. When something is wrong, you need to have it immediately. A big contributor to a lot of startups failing is the fear of having those difficult conversations, the fear of giving feedback, of righting the ship. And a lot of that, I think, and it's true even with DayAway, we've hired some incredible people, brilliant, networked, experienced. They just weren't the right fit for the job that we put them in through no fault of their own. You think you need one particular thing, turns out you don't, or that skill set isn't as effective. It's totally not personal at all. But the longer you let that go, the wrong person in the wrong role, the bigger your problem becomes. And of course, as a startup, you need to watch every single penny being spent productively. And if you start seeing payroll going out every month and not generating the ROI, the income, the revenue coming in, you've got huge problems, the biggest fundamental problem that a startup could ever have. And the more you delay having that difficult conversation of letting somebody go, or being like, oh, maybe we just put them in this role, or maybe we change the role because I'm afraid of having that conversation, it's just like, there goes some of your runway, because I would say, man up, toughen up to, have that difficult conversation. And the more you do it, sadly, that's what I mean. It's just kind of like all things, practice makes perfect. Yeah. You kind of start to build up a callus to it and being like, this isn't personal. This is all like, for the best interest of the business. And unfortunately, it's not a fit and you have to make a change. Anyway, just getting back to your original question around decision making, how it affects things like building a team. I think that fear of doing something hard or having a difficult conversation just cannot be part of the equation. There's just no time for it.
Yeah, no, that's good. As you're speaking, I'm thinking about energy, and you can call it law of attraction or whatever you want to call it, but really there's just principles of physics. And there's this example that's given of, like a boulder rolling down a street, like a hill. And it's kind of to your point, like, when's the best time to stop it? Well, you stop it as soon as it starts rolling. As soon as you see a disaster, like this massive boulder, just connect the dots, it's going to be a disaster. Stop it then, because if you try to stop it by the time it's at the end of the hill, like, well, you won't. It's going to squash you, and it's going to hurt a bunch of bystanders. So you just really made me think about that, because it's the same principle. Once you can see it, then it also, I guess, would connect back to an element of self-confidence, right? Like, you've lived enough, enough to know when you see what you see. So there's that. And then what you mentioned, which I think is like 1,000% like spot on, is just not acting out of fear. because there's also another saying, in energy work, which is energy principles. So we don't have to get crazy. Is energy picks up where it last left off. So sometimes as people, we grow professionally, we grow in so many areas of our life, but then somebody from like a year ago, or this happens a lot with family dynamics, you come around like your sisters or your brothers or your mom or your dad, and somehow it tends to drag you back to like you start acting like a child again, or how you used to act when you were like living together, and you have these conversations with yourself of like, this is not who I am, like this is not who I am anymore. Like, why am I acting this way? You're almost embarrassed of yourself. It happens to me. And you're like, why? And that's because of this principle. Yes, you grew, but you have to now do the work of transferring over all of that growth to these new areas that you haven't touched, because energy picked up where it last left off. So if we make decisions based out of fear, then most likely the next decision you make, not that it's going to pick up in fear necessarily, but probably because you're in a deficit energetically, and your next decision, because you have to fill the gap, is going to come from that weak vibration, that weak level. So you just made me think about that. Well, we kind of, okay, so now that we're offline for a second, we covered mindset, family dynamic, your company. I think we're at a good place. Is there something that comes to mind that you feel you want to share, either about your company or about, yeah, like,
No, I'm trying to think what we talked about during our last conversation that was so engaging. I think that covers a lot of topics. I feel like there was something else we were talking about that we really got into it. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I think we covered it. I guess we talked a while in our last chat about like discovering parts of yourself, or kind of being certain part, like especially for women working, like kind of
yeah,
needing
okay,
to
so I got my
put
next
yourself in
question.
a box. I don't know if we want how we
Yeah,
feel.
no, that's really good. And honestly, thanks for bringing that up, because that's something I've noticed, is that because I'm still like shaping my podcast, right? And while on the one hand doing these preparatory calls, this is too much information for you, like it's good, I find that that first conversation comes out beautifully,
Yeah.
Not to say that this one isn't. I feel like this one's like much more like organized and structured, which is good. But I do have a question, so we can resume here. Um,
Okay, wait. Okay.
So thank you for sharing your insight. Do you feel like, have you found that the person you've become through DayAway, through your experience in launching a company, and the fact that it's made you grow as a person into this boss, do you find, and have you found that it's bleeding over into your personal life, or how are you managing that? Because we
Yeah.
need to, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a period of adjustment. So a bit of a transition. And I think in a way, starting DayAway and kind of stepping into this, leadership role. At one point, I wasn't leading anyone; it was just me. And now, in this leadership role, has kind of helped me rediscover, in a way, things about myself that I haven't seen since I was a kid. So I think, when my parents tell stories about me as a child, even in my 20s, even at my wedding, and I got married when I turned 30. My dad gave a speech at our wedding about the way that I was as a kid. And I think even my husband, I think Dave sees it, but I think other people who were there might have thought like, oh my gosh, that doesn't even like sound like Martha. Like Martha's so easygoing, go with the flow, like whatever. I'm always down to do what other people want to do. But as a child, I don't think I was like that. I think I like to be in charge, telling people what to do, maybe a little bit bossy. Everyone called me Little Miss Martha. And the story my dad told at the wedding, just really quickly, was, I think I told you this, Jess. My mom, with all of these millions of kids at home, brought me to kindergarten and asked the teacher. I missed the cutoff. My birthday missed the cutoff to enter kindergarten. And my mom brought me in, I think, halfway through the year and asked if I could join. And the teacher at the time was like, yeah, okay, we'll take her. But just so you know, it can be quite an adjustment for some of these kids coming in halfway through the year. She's a little bit younger, so just give it some time. And my mom came to pick me up that day. And I had clearly gotten into some dress up bin. I was wearing like a boa. I had my overalls It's like rolled up, one shoulder and everything. And my mom just sees this like crazy person coming out of the school. And I get in the car and my mom asked the teacher, like, how'd she do today? And the teacher was like, I think she wants my job, you know, bossing me around, bossing the kids around, like she'll do just fine. And so I think over time, and I think I probably was that way in high school, you know, I was captain of some of my sports teams that I played on. I was a good student. I was super competitive. And then through college and into my 20s, I was just less that way. Nothing major happened in my life, but I just think I just kind of learned to more adapt to the people around me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe as a woman, I just didn't want to stand out too much, or I wanted people to like me. You know, you're going into college, it's a new environment, you're away from home, right? And then the same thing, you join the workforce, you're at a new company, you're learning from people. It's kind of like pipe down, you're a junior, you know, and that kind of stays with you a bit. And then starting DayAway, there was no time for that. Like you have to make decisions, you have to be confident, you have to put on a brave face when you have employees and team and customers and right. So I think I saw this original personality of mine get brushed off a bit. And, you know, it's interesting because my friendships, my adult friendships have been kind of formulated around a different side of myself. So I think after starting DayAway, there was a little bit of a transition, that side coming out of me at work, you know, would start to come out in social situations too. Just more opinions were coming out, you know, not about like where we would go eat or what we were going to do. Like, I still don't really care about that. But topics, I don't know, they were more, I don't know, political, talking about things that are happening in the world where maybe I wouldn't have piped up before. I certainly had opinions. But now they were being expressed. I was more vocal after starting DayAway. So I think, you know, the people that love you love to see that side of you. And Dave has always known that it was there, you know. So he's very used to it. But with friends and other moms from school, you know, it's a bit of an adjustment. And you have to remind yourself, like, it's not their fault that they only knew one side of you. But I think, yeah, when you really challenge yourself and you put yourself in these difficult roles and you're stepping into a leadership role, I think a lot of people, when you're under that kind of pressure, you'll discover things about yourself. Would you crack? Do you become stronger? Does it create this eagerness to learn how to improve? Like, I'm reading every book I can get my hands on because I don't know a lot of these things and I'm trying to learn on the fly. So I think, yeah, I think you learn a lot of things, rediscover a lot of things about yourself, what you're capable of when you're in a position like this.
Yeah. No, that's good. You're making me think about, because something similar happened in my life, you know, prior to my now partner in love, Kyle. You know, I'd been single for a while and very much so in like go mode, you know, go, go, go. I was just on my own and like had my digital marketing agency. And then as soon as I met him, I felt like, well, a few things happened. Like on the one hand, I felt like I just kind of fell into like beta mode,
Mm.
um, just automatically, like very supportive, you know? And that caused, but then shortly after, we started Paid and Ignition. And for those who don't know, yeah, no, I mentioned my background's in crypto, but I'm one of the founding team members at Master Ventures. And, you know, 6 months into the job, also about 6 months into our relationship, we took Paid and Ignition to market. And so all of a sudden, Alpha Jessica came out, you know,
Mm.
and that definitely caused some problems, full disclosure, because we'd be on these team meetings and you know it wasn't sweetheart Jessica gonna nod and just you know super happy to have his
Mm.
arm, you know, because that was definitely the side of me that
Yeah.
came out. Now it was like I was speaking up and I was using a different tone of voice and a different projection, and it did not go down very nice. Like he would
Mm.
also bark back, and we talked about it a lot because it was just tricky. And I know everyone has their own partner and their own relationship dynamic, but for us, it didn't work out the best. I think it definitely bred some respect, which I think is healthy. And that's one of the things I would say, you know, just kind of regarding like just the larger conversation that we're having here, which is like, you know, a woman being a leader and taking charge of her life and of her career and of her finances, because it's great if you have a man that can provide for you, but there's something that enlivens you, as you said. That's pretty much what happens. You get a surge of life and energy once you start driving your own project. So it's beautiful on the one hand, and in that regard, it bred some respect, which, not to say that it wasn't there, but in that way, like professionally, as a professional and as a boss, that side of me came out. And so it was good on the one hand. On the other hand, not so much, because we didn't know how to shift gears, like how do we talk like peers at work, but then, and not peers because he's the boss, but you know what I mean? And then offline, or, days off, like how do I change? Like how do I transition, energy? And that was challenging for me, but and I know, like, you and I talked about this as well, and you're making me think about it. And that is, once you do transition into your fuller self, we don't have to call it alpha, that's what people call it, but you just transition more into like the fullest version, most enlivened version of yourself. And you find yourself at these, dinner tables or parties with your friends, and usually like the women go chat together, and they're all talking about like, what they shopped and what they bought, and like their children and cute, funny things. They just like to giggle, basically. And the men are over there talking about these very interesting things like markets, market conditions, what's happening, what they're investing in. And I found myself split, and I know you and I talked about this, because they're still your friends and you want to be over here chatting, but this is super interesting what's happening over here, and it does create a bit of like a split sort of like situation. And you used a word that I found very interesting. You're like the second person ever, like in my life or my peripheral, that's used this word, which is, you almost felt like a chameleon, like having to switch in and out of different personas. um, could you just maybe share a little bit more about that? Like how, like obviously it's going good for you. Like how, what could you,
It's
what
been a
could you,
journey.
huh? It's a
It's been
journey.
a journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the question there, I think it's true. I mean, there were definitely times, especially when DayAway was growing really quickly. We were launching new markets. We were announcing the NFT. Dave was really involved in helping me with that. And we'd be at, dinners with other couples, and I'd hear at the other end of the table them talking specifically about DayAway and the NFT and how it was dropping and the utilities of the asset, and where we were expanding, how we should work with corporates. And I was at the other end of the table talking about some school drama, which of course I care about, and I care about what's going on in my kid's school as well. But I can hear DayAway, and I don't want to be rude to the woman that I'm speaking to, but like, you guys, like, clue me in. You're talking about my company. Sometimes I would think about it, though. I guess it's true. There would be times where a girlfriend was asking me about Dave's job in a project that he was working on, and we would be talking about him. So I think it doesn't only go one way, but I think it is true. Like, especially not when I'm with my close girlfriends, because they care about work. They want to ask. They're incredibly supportive. But I think, yeah, you find yourself in those social situations where there's lots of small talk, right? And women tend to default to things that, like if you're at a school event, you can default to talking about the kids and school and those kinds of things, and men kind of default talking about work. And sometimes it would be easier for me to default and talk about work than talking about the same stuff about the kids' school bus schedule, So I think it's difficult, but I would also say there was a time, I think these things always go in a bell curve. There was a time when I was more sensitive to it, almost more self-conscious, like when I was just starting to work. And I think I was really feeling empowered by that. And I wanted, everyone to ask me about work because I was so excited about it. I wanted to talk about it all the time. I think that's the time when I was most sensitive, when I would hear other people, my husband or somebody else, talking about DayAway, and I wasn't a part of the conversation. But it's an interesting thing over time. You kind of, and when, I think especially when the responsibility, the stress really started to peak, there was a welcome kind of escape in talking about small talk and school bus schedules and the kids' activities and whatever it might be, where I was less like, oh, let them talk about DayAway. Like I'm good. Or I'm not so self-conscious, like, what are they saying? Or like, do they know everything about my 10-point strategy? It's like, who cares? But there was a time where I did care, and every single thing about the company I was like a control freak about it. So I think these things come and go, but that's specific to DayAway. Do I still wish I was involved more in conversations about work, or if I was talking to one of my husband's friends that they might ask me about work? Sure. But I think that's an interesting thing, that bell curve. There's another thing I was reading about it. I can't quote the reference, but the graph is about something called Mount Stupid. And the thing is, so you're in the bell curve, like, nothing about something, so you're down here. You read a little bit about it. You read an article. You watch a TV show about it. All of a sudden, you're an authority. And that brings you to the top of Mount Stupid because like 1% of things. And this is something people do all the time, right? They read
Yeah.
one article and all of a sudden it's their entire personality. And like all they talk about is that one article. And then now they're the authority on that subject. And it brings you to the top of Mount Stupid. And then the more that you research, the more that you like really immerse yourself in this subject and you study it, you come off Mount Stupid because you, like they say about wisdom, like the whatever the line is, but the wiser you are, the more you're admitting what you don't know, your curiosity to discover more. So the more you're learning about a subject, you kind of come off Mount Stupid. And you're like, there's lots more for me to learn and whatever. And I kind of think it was like that when I started DayAway. Like I kind of just shot to the top of being like, obsessed with DayAway, and it was my whole life, and I was insecure. Is it going to succeed? Is it not? Like, what are people saying about it? And I was like up here, and I think that kind of spilled over into what we're talking about, like wanting to be involved in every conversation and being offended if somebody only wanted to talk to me about mundane things and not about work. And, like I was too important for it now. And then you kind of come off, and it's like, you start to realize when you're getting really busy and really stressed, everyone's really busy and really stressed. It might not be about the same thing. These women might not be working, but, like we're humans, we find ways to fill our time. We'll always be stressed about something. There's something we're worried about or whatever. So sometimes when I'm in those situations where they're just defaulting to talking about the kids, they might have something else really big going on, and they just want to default to small talk because it's easy. So I've kind of, since our last conversation about that, I've been more thoughtful about it. And, I think there's more dynamics at play than just always needing to be a part of every conversation that's happening about work. But I don't know. So I don't know if that's so relevant now to our conversation today.
No, it is. It really is. And I really like, well, several things that you said, but one is the general awareness. I think, awareness is everything, right? Like you can be on top of Mount Everest, to use the whole mountain analogy. You can be on top of Mount Everest, a phenomenal place, but if you're not aware of where you made it to, well, for one, you're in flow state, so you're being and you're being fully present, which is very powerful. And I think in order to really achieve massive success, which is the journey that I'm on, I don't think if I'm actually, I'll kind of take it back. I don't think I'm really chasing success. It's more so, it's more so wanting to fully develop into the highest form of myself, right? And so there would be that. But so anyway, so there's flow state, which is powerful, and that's what really will bring you success if you just keep going, right? Once you found your thing, you're just flowing. But to be aware is so powerful. That's where I think you're able to share it with others as you're doing today. So thank you. There's that. But also the vulnerability and bravery, really, right? And being able to share where in the past you've been insecure or you've been not really good at something, or just to share that, I think is so empowering. I think it kind of goes for everybody. Most people are afraid of doing that, and I think leaders, all the more, men and women alike, as you were saying, and it's so true. I can relate in my life is you're the boss. Like you can't show weakness. You can't be on the call like unsure of what to do, and you're just self-conscious of that. But I think, and I've read this across multiple like different books or different people that I follow as well on leadership, is it's actually the bravest thing to be vulnerable, and it's the mark of a good leader to be able to be vulnerable and have these conversations and say, I don't know, as you said,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so, yeah, I absolutely applaud you for that. I think it's extremely insightful. Yeah, and you can just tell too, if you can like allow me to like speak of what I see, like you can also tell that you've had these experiences, you've gone through the journey, you've gone through the process, because there's a certain level of like I don't know how I would call it, but like certain like calmness and wisdom, in the way that you speak and what you share. Yeah, yeah, because yeah. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. I think, it's just like we were saying earlier, it's just practice. And it's like sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. And it's easy to now to look back and being like, yeah, at that point where I was acting this way or, kind of making some maybe not the right decisions. It was insecurity. I didn't know, it was just kind of like feeling my way through it. And I think getting even back to the beginning of our conversation is what would we share with other women who were kind of on that brink of making a leap like this, of following, their passion or creating a company, is just kind of like, you're going to have to go through it. You're just going to have to be okay with it. And it is, being a better version of yourself or wanting to learn and build this experience, it's kind of it's a beautiful thing, and there was one point where there's a mentor that I have here in Singapore. And before I did the NFT drop, and we had oh, sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say
No,
something?
no, no, no. I'm just oohing, oohing
No,
and on.
yeah, you met, well, she was at our Majestic Phuket weekend as well. And she, I'll not go through all of the details, but we were having a conversation about life cycles, right? And
Is this Julia?
yes,
I love
yeah,
Julia.
yeah, I know.
Going.
I know, she's amazing. And we're talking about life cycles and or these cycles of life that could be, in big, like over multiple years, within a year, within a month, within the day. Anyway, these different cycles. And I, at the time when we were having this conversation, was super nervous about our NFT drop. Like everything building up to this, I'd been working on it for like a year, stop, go, because the markets, like I just wanted this thing to go live, but I was really nervous about it. And we were talking about cycles in my own life. And she's like, essentially to get to this, like this place where you will be to succeed, like this place where you want to be, what you've envisioned for yourself, there will be this cycle that you go through to get there. And likely there will be some kind of thing that doesn't go right. And there might be a healing kind of transition after that. And after that will be like tremendous growth. When she was telling me this, all I was thinking is like, you know what I know this means? And I was really down about it at the time. I'm like, I think this NFT is not going to sell out. And to me at the time, that was like a fate worse than death, right? Like I couldn't even imagine this not selling out. And I'd put myself out there. I was doing like Twitter spaces with 30,000 people on them. And I've never put myself out on social media. Like my accounts were never public before. And all of a sudden now I'm posting in front of like tens of thousands of people. I'm putting opinions out there. I'm talking about how we're going to change loyalty programs using Web3, like really something I'd never done before. And the NFT didn't sell out, which at the time, looking back on it, like it wouldn't matter. We only have 500 of these assets to sell in perpetuity forever. A sellout really didn't mean anything. But watching the OpenSea drop and not sell out in 5 seconds, I started to shrink into this, like I wanted to be as small as possible. I didn't, the days after that, I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see anybody. And of course, looking back, that was so silly. Like my friends, like this did not impact their life. They didn't care. But I wanted to be as small as possible. And it might sound like a small deal, but for me, that was horrible. Like I do not put myself out there. Even with building DayAway up to that point, I'd gotten away with, yeah, I'd done some photo shoots, I'd done some speaking engagements, but like it really wasn't as public as as the NFT drop was. And so exactly what Julia said would have to happen. I was going to have to go through something that would really force me to grow. And taking those walls down, bringing my barriers down and putting myself out there and kind of being a little bit, wasn't the success that I had hoped. was quite a thing for me to go through. And now I see it. Like now I'm unfazed by that. Like I'm not afraid of trying new things and having them fail because something great will come from it. The learning experience, the callus that it will build, the experience, the practice. So I think this is like really important to those people that are trying to start this journey is like it will happen and don't be afraid of it because at some point, a year, years, 5 years, 10 years, you'll look back and be like, that was all so necessary. So, I mean, for me, like, I know they say a lot of entrepreneurs, like, a lot of them fail their first project, right? The majority of businesses fail. For me, that is not an option for DayAway. So I have to make these small pivots. I have to try different things and fail, pull back, have difficult conversations, re-strategize, then on to the next phase. The DayAway, like I'm not at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. You know, there's not another project after this. I don't think. But like what I can do is make smart decisions, not be afraid of those failures, and iterate and evolve and keep this thing alive. As Dave always says, it's kind of on a different topic, but he's like, don't be a unicorn. Be a, what does he say? Be a cockroach. Like just survive. Survive. It's true. It's true. I mean, look at all these companies. Look at TikTok. I mean, TikTok didn't start off as TikTok, you know, like they were just a company just struggling along for years and years and years. But anyway, I don't know if you want to include that in the podcast, but like that really sticks with me. It's like don't, and I think actually a lot of, you know, investment groups, the VCs, the private equity groups would probably in these market conditions would say the same thing. Don't think about like growth and scale just to be a unicorn. Think about making money, stay alive, conserve capital. You know, that's like, yeah, that's the new mantra. And that's all they want to invest in. No more like, don't show me the growth trajectory. Show me how much money you made last year. Like, and we're not investing in less than 2 million ARR. So I think Dave is actually a great example of this Mount Stupid thing. Like me, I mean, with him, like I started DayAway and all of a sudden, you know, I know everything about business. I know everything about everything. And then Dave, who's done this, you know, he's had multiple projects that he's launched. He's gone through a number of capital raises. He's raised quite a lot for a number of businesses, you know, bless his heart. He just watched me come off Mount Stupid a little bit, you know? And now I'm like, and at the time when you're insecure, like you're not even open to criticism or suggestions, right? You're so closed off. And then you go through something like, you know, you learn a little bit more. You go through a failure or something that wasn't as successful as you thought. You get some, you know, some harsh feedback from a VC or a potential client that says no. All of a sudden, start opening up to feedback real quick, you know, wanting to learn from others, being a little bit more receptive. So I don't know. The journey is just it's a very cool thing. And I think it doesn't end, right? We're all far from perfect, but there's lots more to learn.
Yeah.
It's been very exciting.
That's so funny. Like, yeah, you're just making me think about just that, like, keep going, you know, even if you fail, just you don't even see it as failure, right? You see it as part of the process. Kyle's the same. Like, I have been personally, like, yeah, just completely in awe is the truth. Since we started, I can't even tell you, I don't know how many projects at this point, you know, he's like like, you know, visioneered, and then I've watched him like bring the team together, and then, you know, first iteration, and then squash it, redo it, and take it to market, you know. And it's like, if there's one thing he's extremely good at that I've personally felt challenged by and have incorporated more and more into my life, is just that mentality that, like, don't be a unicorn, be a cockroach, you know, like you just keep going, you just keep going, you just keep going. And that is, yeah, I feel like if there's one thing, you know, like entrepreneurs need to know and be, and just like, just have like, just hang on to, and just like have ringing in the back of your head is that, like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, you know?
Yeah.
But
you have to, and the thing is it's not just, there are lots of decisions that have to be made in that process to keep going. Like at one point with DayAway, it was keep going, stay alive, but have those crucial conversations right now. Conserve capital every way you can to give yourself, like at the time what we were talking about, we scaled up really fast, then we had to scale back. And the reason that had to happen was at one point with DayAway, it was clear that the model might not scale the way we had hoped. And so I was just watching, you know, payroll go out every month and not the amount of money that we had thought would come in. And I had to stay alive. So it was a really difficult month, but I had to have those difficult conversations, not spread out. I had to have them right away. And I was like, I need to stop the bleeding of resources going out. I need to re-strategize around how we're going to scale this company. I'm going to rework the model. I'm going to build a new deck. I'm going to build new tech that can make this possible. And then in 3 months, we'll go back out. And that's what happened, just a couple months ago. And thank God we did it. It's better than we ever could have imagined. But you have to, you have to be brave and like suck it up, have that difficult conversation, but just keep going. There are things that have to
in between that
happen for that to be possible, to even keep going.
Yeah.
Money doesn't grow on trees, so you got to figure out a way to stay alive.
How do you manage the being fully present in your company, in the weeds, versus that time you carve out for visioneering? Like what's to come? Like how do you manage that on a day-to-day, or is there a process you follow?
Yeah. So I think if any of my team was watching this, they'd be like, oh my gosh, Martha's the worst. She says she wants to pull herself out of the weeds. And then like I see something on Instagram or one of our emails to go out. I'm like, oh, you guys, next time let's do this and let's change this. And they're just like, oh my gosh, back off. Like these are all so subjective. So I'm like the worst. But I think one thing that I'm trying to, I don't even have to try because my team is amazing. They're all superstars. It's just trust, like I don't need to be involved in every single decision anymore. And in fact, it's detrimental to the business for me to be spending my time doing that. I think there are things that I do still very much want to have a finger on the pulse of because I love it. Like I love the branding element of our platform, the community that we're building, all of this. But I would say now that things are running smoothly, I have so much more time, headspace for strategy. And that took a mix of a couple of things. One, hiring the right people in the right roles. I never think it was a question of having the right people. We've had amazing people, as I mentioned, is in the right roles. At one point, we were like super marketing heavy and we didn't have anyone in operations. Like that was like a recipe for disaster, right? And now we have that support in an operations role, which has been game changing for us. And with that resource and that support there, it's freed up a lot of my time. I still, I managed to find my way into the weeds and I feel like everyone rolls their eyes, but whatever, I can't help it. It's the transition. I'm on a path of self-improvement myself. Rome wasn't built in a day. I think I'll still be checking out the weeds every now and then. But yeah, I think I'm in a really great balance. And a lot of that was bringing in those key people. And I think what's been amazing about the people we have is we have a culture of, autonomy and independence. I want them to be independent. Like the reason you're here is you know more about this than I do. I'm here to listen and learn. Why don't like this person that we have in the operations role right now, they had made a bunch of suggestions and like, do you like this? Do you like that? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with your recommendation. You're running the show on this part of the business. I'm happy to start using the tools that you recommend. And then let's see how we go. And I think that's given them an incredible amount of autonomy and they know that they have my support and confidence. And so they're building like crazy. I mean, this resource is incredible. I mean, she's in charge of that. Like even like we have calls where she's kind of even on top of me about things that I said I'm working on. So I like that. That's helped me respond really well because at one point the decision fatigue is real. Everyone coming to you with every single question. And that really, I mean, I'm to blame. I created that culture of I needed to sign off on everything. So you have to take the active steps to change it and can't be afraid to let other people do their job. Like something might go wrong, big deal. But that cost is worth it for me to have more free time to strategize about the business. But yeah, at one point, the amount of decisions in a day from work to the kids to everything was just impossible.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. And you look so good. I'm not sure how you did it. No. Tell us a little bit about your team. Like who's on your team? Who did you recruit? What are their backgrounds? Like spotlight on your team.
Yeah, so we're a small team. We're very lean at the moment, which is great, and producing more than ever. So we'll scale up the team again, but only when business necessitates it, that we have so much business that we need to hire more. Um, but I have my CTO and our dev team, it's based in Vietnam. They've been working with me from day one when this was just an idea. And at the time, this dev team and our current CTO, who I connected with, he was on a list of people, like one of those days where I had like a list of 60 people, like, who do I call next? Who do I get on the line? He was on that. He could have easily been a call I didn't make. And it would have been the biggest missed opportunity of this entire business. He has a hospitality tech specific background. So I could have gone to any dev shop and been like, I want to build this beautiful website. I want it to work like this. And they would have built it. And it wouldn't have worked. They wouldn't have known the integrations that we needed to build with the hotel. They wouldn't have pushed back probably on me and how we needed to build this entire framework. Our current CTO knew all of that. We've had a very collaborative relationship ever since. Funnily enough, we've been in touch every single day for over 2 years, and we've never met in person. And so I'm going to Vietnam very soon to meet him and the team in person. So I'm very excited about that. But so yeah, we have that team of developers. We have our digital marketing director. We actually met with her when she was working in hospitality, but she also has her own business called the Asia Collective. I don't know if she would want me mentioning that here. I think it's okay. But she is incredible, incredible marketer. I just love her. She's such a star. When we were launching even the NFT and she wanted to learn more about Web3, she just dove into Discord and Twitter and learning about degen culture. And this is what I mean, like somebody that can grow with the business. Like, how do you hire for that role as a startup? Like somebody who understands luxury hospitality and travel and works with influencers. And by the way, is interested in learning about Discord. And, so she's a unicorn in and of herself. We have an incredible graphic designer who's responsible for the entire aesthetic of the brand. We have a head of brand who's formerly the editor-in-chief of a major editorial platform here in Singapore. So I think, we've just got this team of, very unique skill sets that have been able to keep the team tight. There's no thing that ever comes up that somebody on the team's not like, yep, I've got that. Give it to me. I'm going to just dive into this head first. And of course, now we have this new operations resource who has been a game changer for us. And then we have another amazing resource in account management who, she does everything from customer service, from hotels to our actual DayAway members, to getting properties onboarded. So I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anyone. But yeah, it's an incredible team.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I think that everything that you shared is so paints the perfect picture of what it takes to make a powerful leader, and make an impact. We're the sum of all our parts. Your partner, Dave, he's behind the scenes. No one sees him, but he's making his impact. He's making his mark. The fact that you're a mother, I'm convinced that mothers have this supernatural power. I feel like as soon as I've watched women in my life, I don't know if you can relate, because I know you have sisters too. I'm from a family of 4 girls, and I'm the only one without children. But we're starting to plan to start a family. So yeah, I think it's phenomenal, the team you have, what you're aspiring to do, this incredible company you built during COVID, when most people would feel shut down. And, as a consequence, not necessarily be thinking of businesses, but I think that is, of course, also what defines an entrepreneur, is someone that sees need and fills it. So I think that's all just incredibly inspiring. Yeah, I'd love to have you back on the show. I wish you all the best success. I'll be following you closely offline as well. And yeah, I just want to see what DayAway becomes. Can't wait to see you again in Singapore.
I know, I can't wait.
We'll be there in September, so I'll be texting you.
Yeah, that'll be a fun time. It's the best time of year to visit. And Jess, thanks so much for having me. And this has been so enjoyable. I think it's so important what you're doing, and having these conversations with women to kind of share that it's not all easy. It's not meant to be easy. Working with your partner is not always easy. Building a business, it's not easy, or everyone would do it. But I think it's this has been even really therapeutic for me. So I think I'm really looking forward to seeing the podcast evolve as well, and seeing other women that you're bringing on and looking to learn myself. So thanks so much for including me.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the goal, is really to bring women together. I feel like women are quite, like everyone's just like, we're divided. I feel like men have this sort of like tribal bond with each other, and women, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. And so that's one. So thank you for saying that, because I feel like that's the heartbeat of the show, is yes, to put a spotlight on powerful women. Absolutely. It's to hear your mindset. We want to know like how you tick, and likewise, I feel like, in what you shared, it's confirming, beliefs that I had. It's helping me. You're in a way, you're transferring your experience, and so I think that's beautiful, and I would hope that every woman that listens to this show feels empowered, doesn't feel alone, feels like there's someone else she can relate to, someone else that has done it too, and that through this we can build a community and just make each other better, and like have each other's backs and just champion each other. Thank you. You look
Wonderful.
beautiful. I know I'm not supposed to
Bless
say that,
you as
but
always.
you do.
It's so nice just surviving over here. But no, thanks again for having me, and for anyone who's listening in, thanks for tuning into our conversation.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Jess.
Okay. All
Enjoy
right.
the rest of your day. Speak
Thank
soon.
you. I'll see you on
All
the other
right.
side.
See
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode with Martha Wilson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you enjoyed this content, I would ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, because it's my hope, my heart, my passion to bring you episodes with powerful women that are making a big impact in our culture, in our society, in our world, that are mothers, that are wives, sharing their stories with you, in hopes that you would feel empowered as well to make these changes in your life or take up new projects, and just feel like you're not alone. This podcast is specifically for women, but men are welcome to hear and to tune in as well. That said, thank you so much. Follow me on all my socials. I'll link those below, or you'll find them somewhere on the screen. And I look forward to our next time together. Thank you. Much love.